All right, so this video was suggested to me again on the sidebar about why women are struggling to meet men. And I put the transcript into ChatGPT and it gave me the title Hypergamy Explained Why Women Struggle to Date Down. And throughout my life, I've met lots and lots of women, mostly other students at university. But even they had resources. When you meet a student, it's not about who they are, it's who their parents are and what kind of money that they've been exposed to throughout their lives. And this gives them a better sense of what they expect or how they expect to be treated going forward in their lives and moving into a relationship with either a man that does have money or doesn't have money. And if he doesn't have money, he's going to be making up for that with other things. Like one of the first things I heard from a woman like this who married down was, I didn't marry him for his great personality. I married him for his giant beep. Being 16 years old and hearing that from a woman probably in her late 20s was something that I will never forget. And I have mentioned that many times on this channel is that it's not just about women struggling to date down. It's about finding what you really want. And apparently this woman wanted a giant, you know, lollipop. Let's put it that way. But at the end of the day, she was dissatisfied with the rest of them. He didn't have a charming personality and he didn't have a great job. So, in this situation, it really did work against her in every sense because she decided to put certain things aside, right? Finances aside, and struggle with the decision to date down. And so when you meet women who date down, you ask them, are you happy in your relationship? And the answer will always be no. And I've been around a person like this for around 5 years who says things like this to me. I don't want to be in a relationship. I want to be independent. I want to have my own money. But I also want to look like a man takes care of me. So in that situation, she still wants the money because she wants to look a certain way. And by looking a certain way, this means that lower tier men aren't going to come over and want to talk to her. They're going to look at her designer clothing, look at her designer handbag, look at her luxury car, and look at how well she keeps herself up. Well, that's a man that's probably not going to go and bother her. Even though I've seen her make some very poor decisions when it comes to the types of men that she goes after. She's typically after the 100 grand or higher men, but does occasionally settle, just like any Susie Rottencrotch, to assume the position behind the Taco Bell if that's the mood she's in. All right, so let's get into my two talking points. So these are the AI generated talking points. How hypergamy might stem from deep rooted survival instincts where women seek stability and security in a partner, and contrast that with how society often dismisses this as materialistic or shallow. So, this is where my experience with my mom comes in, and then the experience with this person that I just mentioned. So, my mom had five different children with five different men. And none of the men that she partnered with to create those children were people who were financially secure. Stability wasn't about any of these men. As I can recall, none of them owned a car, none of them owned their own home, and none of them were considered educated. Every one of these donors of the child's seed to her were all incredibly low level, very, very low level proletariat men. And I'm going to go one level lower and say most of them were migrants, and they didn't speak English. They weren't going anywhere in their careers. And for the most part, I noticed that there was a pattern of a lot of these men living together in shared housing. So they had nothing to offer other than baby batter. But my mom also realized that, men, more affluent men, aren't going to give her the time of day either because she wasn't attractive, she was short, she was heavy, and she wasn't a particularly intelligent person. I mean, she continued to get, you know what, over and over and over again. And you're just like, at some point, even myself, I question it, why do you keep doing this? And some women just don't know. But then you contrast that with the other women that I've met, the women that I have gone out with in my life. And that is the women in our society who are more materialistic and shallow. They look at your car, they look at what kind of job you have, they look at whether or not you have stable housing, you have stable finances, whether you represent stability, because they may have grown up poor. Like the current one that I talked to grew up in rural eastern United States and her parents to this day are dirt poor. They live in substandard housing, and they have never been able to offer their daughter any sort of financial stability. In fact, she wanted to fly back home to visit them for Thanksgiving, and she needed to find someone with financial stability to help her do that. And so, when these women are looking for resources, male resources, their search patterns for the types of men that they're looking for are incredibly different. This girl would never in a million years get pregnant. Not a chance. That's not even anywhere on the table. Pregnancy is completely out of the question. It doesn't mean she's not a Susie Rottencrotch. It just means that this Susie Rottencrotch isn't about being the Susie Rottencrotch single mom, where my mom didn't care. My mom was about creating as many children as humanly possible, and then not caring, because obviously she didn't have the resource to take care of those children. She didn't have the time because she was always working. She just enjoyed making children, as opposed to this person who the very idea of having children, not, and I'm not saying that they don't like the dirty, that Susie Rottencrotch will always love a good throw behind the Taco Bell, but their instincts are different. She's doing it in order to attract resources. It may make her seem material and shallow, but she's just set the bar up higher. And the reason for that is that although women struggle to date down, sometimes they can't get what they want. Every woman would love to have a movie star husband that was ripped and that would just take care of them. But if you're not quite there, you've got to look for men in just the shallower pools. And you are going to be more materialistic, but you're also going to be significantly more attractive as a woman in order to be able to dip your hand into that particular pool. All right, in the last minute that I have here, whether this behavior is a response to societal pressure or a natural evolutionary mechanism. I think it can be a little of both. Societal pressure for women is don't look poor. Like, I'm gonna go see Salon Girl number two in a couple of hours. Overall, I would say she's very cute, but in her situation where she is dirt poor, societal pressures are going to make her more likely to have to get into relationships for resources. And social pressure is going to play a big role in that. And um, and are these a natural evolutionary mechanism? I would say that nearly everything we do, especially when you come from a family where you saw your mother doing these things, girls always become their mothers, regardless. You can watch them walk together, you can watch them talk together, you can watch the way that they make career financial decisions. Girls always become their mothers, regardless of whether or not they like it or not. They may criticize their mother from the moment they realize that their mothers are really bad at dealing with money and men and with life, but they're built around the same factors, so they end up making the same decisions. Those evolutionary mechanisms aren't something that you just say, I'm not going to do this. It is ingrained into them to find what the type of man that they're looking for through those evolutionary mechanisms, and it usually ends up badly for them. But again, they can't help it. It's what they are and it's what they do. So women may struggle to date down, but when it comes to the video that I'm going to make on men's perspective about dating down, it is completely different because for men, it's all about the thrusting and sweating and just getting it done and then moving on.